Hello investigators and welcome once again to Until the End of Time. My name is Werner. This is going to be another starter deck leaks video. Another 7 cards have been leaked of these starter decks. I'm just going to go run through them real quick, give you my first impressions and share my thoughts on them. This is just a warning before I start. I've had a absolutely terrible sleep last night. So if I'm not completely coherent, my apologies. Also, my mic appears to be acting up a bit and being a lot softer than it normally is, and I'm not sure how that happened, so my apologies. I hope that it's fixed next time. First up, we have GRETE WAGNER level 3. So we've already seen the level 0 version, which was very similar. This is a 5-cost asset with 3 XP, combat, intellect, and wild icon. She's an ally and hunter. She takes up the ally slot. She gives you +1 combat, +1 agility, and the ability reaction after you defeat an enemy, exhaust her, deal 1 damage to her, discover 1 clue at your location or a collecting location. She has 4 health and 2 sanity. Off the top of my head, the original GRETE didn't have the wild icon, didn't give you +1 intellect, and only discover clues at your location and was only 3 health. So this is a pretty powerful upgrade. The ability to find clues at other locations is incredible because it allows you to set up these pseudo evidences much better. The +1 intellect is relevant on a surprising number of investigators. Off the top of my head, Roland and what's the other guy called? Leo Anderson really care about that. So yeah, not to forget, if you use this in Mark, then putting a damage on her is going to draw you a card. So this slides into the Guardian card pool very nicely and gives you a lot of clue options for a faction that has historically had issues with that. Next up, we have BACKSTAB level 3, a card that has received mixed reactions. So it's a 3-cost event, 3 XP, combat and agility icons, BACKSTAB, tactic, traded, fight. This attack uses agility instead of combat, and the attack deals +2 damage. If you defeat by 2 or more, return it to your hand at the end of your turn. So the problem a lot of people have been having with this, for the people who have problems with it, is that it does not provide an agility boost, and it does not have any discounts compared to the level 0 backstab, which presents somewhat of a problem because if you want to reliably return this card to your hand, you're going to need to have a lot of economy to keep backstabbing, and you're going to have enough card draw and abilities to ensure the succeed by 2. Now, if you're Winifred, both of those problems kind of solve themselves because Winifred primarily plays skill, so she has a lot of economy left over. And she'll have, she has agility 5 baseline and she will always commit 2 cards to this, so that's decent. I think a lot of people were hoping that the leveled up backstab would have a resource reduction, an ability, and a way to make those backstabs land more reliably, because that's the thing that's holding back level 0 backstab. As it sits, this only goes into a select few decks, and that, it's a little disappointing. Next up, we have Ineffable Truth level 0. A 3-cost asset with an agility icon. It is a spell with 3 charges, takes up the arcane slot, and you can spend the charge to evade using willpower instead of agility, and if you succeed, you deal 1 damage to the evaded enemy. If you reveal a Elder Sign, +1 or 0 token, during the evasion attempt, lose a resource. This card is a leveled down version of the level 3 Inevitable Truth that we've already seen. I think this card is... well, it makes me very sad about Ineffable Truth level 3, but we'll get to that later. As it sits, this is decent if you don't have Mist of Relier. But if you have both, I think you mostly go Mist, because that one is 1 resource cheaper and has 4 uses instead of 3. The fact that this deals damage is interesting, but it's not necessarily a good thing. Most of the time, if you're evading an enemy, your goal is to get away from that enemy, not to then kill that enemy. Though there are situations imaginable where you want to evade an enemy with perhaps retaliate, and then dealing damage for free is nice. As it sits, this seems like very much a good card for the starter decks, because if you have this, then you don't need to buy Forgotten Age just for the evasion spell. You have an evasion spell. And the likes of off-class mystics like Daisy don't like traveling or combat spells that deal damage as much as the evasion stuff, because it's usually easier for them to run away. Next up, we have Unexpected Courage level 2, a skill in the Survivor faction with 2 wild icons, innate and developed. Max 1 committed per skill test. If this test fails, return Unexpected Courage to your hand. This is an excellent upgrade. If you I think if you're playing a Survivor, you will want to purchase this at some point. I'm not sure that every Survivor goes for this immediately. I think quite a few actually don't. But this provides you with basically, it's a very good cornered activation, because if you fail, if you know you're gonna fail, it gets returned to you. Now, why would you ever want to commit it if you know you're gonna fail? Well, imagine, say, your 1 willpower rogue ally just drew a rotting remains. You can either have them test on 1 or you can test them on 3. If you test them on 3, suddenly they don't fail by 3 on their rotting remains, they fail by 1 maybe. And this is where this card starts getting very powerful, is if you can get value out of failing by less, this card becomes very strong. Obviously, if you just have a situation where you want to pass a test but you don't have a guarantee, this is quite nice. People already mentioned, if you have this in min, it works very nicely if you fail your king in yellow test, because keep in mind, this is a level 2 skill, so min can take it, or off-class survivors can take it. And in general, it does seem like a bit of a card for maybe helping out your teammates as well, right? If they have stuff they have to test that they're not good at, but you can easily use it for yourself as well. And it definitely leads into that Survivor playstyle of you can do anything, but you're gonna have to work with the tools that your cards give you. This is one where, like, yeah, you're gonna fail, but then maybe you only fail by 1, and then you can maybe live and learn. Play this again, right? Figuring out how to properly play this card is going to be tricky, but I do think it's a good card. Next up, we have a new basic weakness, Nihilism, from the Jacqueline pack. Revelation, put it into play in your threat area. It's a madness, by the way. And then forced, after you reveal, cancel, or ignore an autofill token, take 1 damage and 1 horror. Action, discard Nihilism. This is a very, very simple basic weakness, and one that's not that painful, I think. So, because it only cares about you revealing, canceling, or ignoring those autofill tokens, you're averagely going to be around, 1 in 16, 17, 18-ish to hit this. If you ever seal the 7th sign and just get rid of the autofill token, it does nothing. Otherwise, this is like just 1 damage and 1 horror, right? It's not that much. So to me, this feels like a very mild weakness, because compare this to something like Internal Injury or Chronophobia, which deal 1 direct damage or direct horror every turn. This is much less likely to punish you as hard. So yeah, if you are playing literal Jacqueline, this is a lot worse, of course, because you're going to be revealing a lot more tokens. But turns out most investigators don't do that, so you'll probably be fine. Next up, I've got a plan level 2, a 2-cost Seeker event. It's lost the pip. It's also missing the Seeker icon, I just now realized. Double intellect icons and a combat icon. Insight and tactic traded. Fight. This attack uses intellect instead of combat. You get +2 intellect for this test. You do +1 damage for this attack for each clue you have. Max +3 damage. This is exactly what a lot of people were hoping that Backstab level 3 would be. So this is really, this is really just like decent, right? If you want to play I've Got a Plan, then this is the I've Got a Plan you want to upgrade into. It's -1 cost, it's +1 intellect icon, and it's +2 intellect on the test. It's just, if you want to play I've Got a Plan, which is the 3 cost, and I think the same amount of damage otherwise, and just straight up intellect instead of combat, like, this is just better in every measurable way that you would want it to be. And yeah, you just get this powerful effect for a little cheaper and a little bit more reliable. So yeah, it's a good card. And then lastly, we have Overpower level 2, which is a skill in the Guardian faction, 3 combat icons, practiced and expert traded, max 1 committed per skill test. If the test is successful, draw a card, 2 cards instead if it succeeds by 2 or more. And it's Silas on the art, which is kind of a sad thing because Silas cannot take this. That being said, this is a cycle, or at least it seems to confirm a cycle. We have already seen Manual Dexterity, and we saw the Unexpected Courage earlier. So now we also see Overpower, and we'll can kind of guess we'll get a Perception and a Guts in the same for Seeker and Mystic respectively. So how good are these? Well, it depends a little bit on how much your deck wants card draw. The fact that this gives you 2 cards pretty reliably, I would say, it's pretty nice. Like, at 2 XP, you definitely want to get those 2 cards reasonably often. The nice thing is, especially if you're in a faction that wants to succeed, or in a deck that wants to succeed by 2 occasionally, this card gets significantly better. So I'm thinking, if you're Guardian, maybe you run something like Shotgun or Vicious Blow level 2. If you're, Manual Dexterity, you're playing Winifred, you just succeed by 1 billion. If you are a Seeker or Mystic, I'm not quite as sure why you would want to be succeeding by 2, but they're still good cards. I think the trick with this card is going to be finding the XP to play it, because the cost of including it is fairly low, right? It's just 3 combat icons. If you're Guardian, chances are you're going to be using those, but it's probably crowding out more exciting options, so that's something you're going to have to manage. I mean, draw 2 is never a bad thing. Well, that was it. It was a bit of a rushed episode. I blame sleep deprivation. Thank you very much for watching. In addition to the links I've posted the last couple of times, I have now also added a number of Imgur albums that contain every Investigator card previewed for that deck, including the ones officially previewed by FFG and FFG approved sources. So if you just want to have a visual overview of every card in the deck, go there, watch those. And I'll be posting these again next week. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be seeing you until the end of time.